What would you do for $1 million? For some in the 1890s, desperate situations called for desperate measures. People ventured into previously uncharted territory in the snow and cold in search of rumored gold. In 1896, a team made up of Skookum Jim, George Carmack, Kate Carmack, and Dawson Charlie found deposits of gold in Rabbit Creek near Dawson City, Yukon. This discovery sparked a sudden rush of people to the area in search of the rumored amounts of gold. The sudden rush of people, mostly from the west coast of the United States, was a turning point for the previously undeveloped economies of Dawson City, San Francisco, and Seattle. The gold rush built up a steady infrastructure in these cities that still exists today, attracting people from all over the country to this region.
This discovery occurred at an important economic point in United States history. The Panic of 1893 was the beginning of one of the first big depressions in the United States. This disaster included 15,000 businesses closing, and almost a quarter of our country's industries stopped producing goods and services. The Panic of 1893 created a surge in unemployment, and connections between cities were basically cut off because railroad companies went bankrupt. Almost 6.1% of people couldn't get jobs. People were desperate for some sort of income. So was the government. Immigration rates were way below average. Gross national product fell almost 10% from 1892 to 1894, and the US went to a second recession in 1895. Eventually, people became fed up with the lack of jobs and income sources. They flocked to the developing port cities of San Francisco and Seattle. Many people thought gold could change their lives in tough economic times. This economic crisis occurred almost 30 years after President Andrew Johnson purchased Alaska from the Russians, a move that had previously received scrutiny from Americans. Although at that time, they started to realize that it had actually been a very good investment. In Seattle, twin steamboats Excelsior and Portland brought people to Dawson City on the Yukon River. This came with a big price tag. The famously tagged Rich Man's Route was the easiest way to get to Dawson City, but it was also the most expensive. Others hiked through the snow-laden mountains in the Chilkoot Pass. Future writers, bartenders, cooks, guides, and miners set off for Alaska. This gold fever was just beginning to catch and dominate through America. Prominent figures including Jack London, Thomas Edison, and Robert Service were a part of this rush. This gold was not easy to get to, though. People had to walk thousands of miles by foot through frigid cold and sometimes blizzard-like conditions. I contacted Cameron Bell at the Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park to see what these conditions were really like. She said that, as people headed to the Klondike, few of them had any idea what they were getting themselves into. Without modern communication systems, stampeders had to rely on hearsay and advertisements to let them know what they needed in the north. Towns like Dyea and Skagway in southern Alaska were created as boom towns. They were made to support the needs of a rapidly growing population of miners, with many businesses and supply shops. The unfortunate truth is that throughout the whole rush, people completely disrespected the land of the Tlingit people. Mines and villages were established right where Tlingit villages had previously been. The rush of stampeders on the Chilkoot Trail also cut off an important trade route that the Tlingit people had been using. When stampeders finally arrived at the Klondike, most were met with a surprise. Most of the gold was hard to get to, and many people had already laid claims on the creek. Some people realized that mining was not necessarily the way to go. One of these people was Dawson Charlie. Dawson Charlie, the namesake for Dawson City, Yukon, figured out that he could make more money by providing services for the miners. He built up infrastructure at the confluence of the Yukon and Klondike rivers. This included saloons, hotels, and businesses. One of his partners followed a similar path. Joe Ledoux, a miner turned outfitter, wanted to help the miners. This was a good investment due to the risky mining. Mining in the Klondike had two parts: bringing gravel with the gold to the surface and then separating the gold from the gravel. Miners used sluice boxes to recover the gold from the creek. Another important group of people was the Tlingit people. They were forced to adapt when their land was invaded. They were contracted out to transport supplies, and many worked as guides on the Chilkoot Trail. Tlingit people also operated ferries in between Skagway and Dyea. They also offered council and navigational services. At the same time, in Seattle, the population continued to grow, its figure almost doubling from 40,000 in 1890. The Seattle Chamber of Commerce attracted people to Seattle by referring to it as the outfitter of the gold rush. The money that went into the Seattle economy helped them to upgrade and build railroad systems to Alaska and build up waterfront properties. The U.S. government even built a gold assessment building in Seattle, and the city developed many mining colleges and schools. Thousands of people left from Seattle by boat or by foot to go to the Yukon. After many years of successful mining, people slowly started leaving from the Klondike region due to a diminishing amount of gold. Prospectors were suddenly unable to make money off of their claims. Unemployment rates rose due to this, and many people left Dawson City, Skagway, and Dyea. While Skagway and Dawson City remained strong, Dyea completely faded. In the Klondike, many people made bad decisions with their money, including gambling and drinking off their money. Not many people actually maintained the money that they earned, but the gross yield of the gold rush ended up being about $50 million. To summarize, 100,000 people went to the Yukon region. Only 30,000 people even made it to Dawson City. Just 15,000 people looked for gold, and only 4,000 people found gold. And of that 4,000, only 300 people found enough to be considered rich, and just 50 of that 300 could keep their wealth. For some, this meant another snow-laden journey back home. However, those who had made enough money took steamers back to Seattle. When they arrived in the summer of 1898, the People's Advocate newspaper read, "Millions in dust, gold-laden steamer arrives in San Francisco." It said that out of the ship's 176 passengers, there was an estimated total of $3 million in gold nuggets and dust. While the gold changed the lives of the few who found gold, it devastated the many who didn't find gold. Back in Skagway, many people left the region, but the historic buildings and saloons still remain today. Today, cruise ships replace tugboats and steamers. It is one of many Alaskan tourist destinations and is home to the Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park. In Dyea, the bustling town that was reduced to rubble and is now known as one of the great ghost towns of America. In the Tlingit community, people tried to adapt back to their previous lives, but the gold rush caused so much devastation to the environment where they lived that they had to move to different areas. There were also not many job opportunities for them after the miners left. In Seattle, the population continued to climb into the 20th century and is today a major port city with a diverse population and many skyscrapers. All in all, the Klondike Gold Rush had very mixed results. It was very successful in the sense that it brought the U.S. out of an economic crisis and provided a light at the end of the tunnel for those who lost hope. It sparked major developments in cities across the western United States, and its impact can still be seen today. Whether it be cruise ships or ghost towns, the Klondike Gold Rush left a lasting impression in United States and Alaskan history.